Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is in theaters now. And if you guys have not seen my spoiler-free video, that is on my channel right now. This video is going to be all about spoilers. I'm not going to get too much into the plot. I'm not going to get too much into positives and negatives and stuff. I just really want to talk about a few aspects of the film that I simply could not talk about in my original video. I liked a lot about the film, and there were things I didn't like. But one of the things I was very curious about was what they would do with the Mutt Williams storyline. Shia LaBeouf's character, Indiana Jones' son. And they just killed him off. What this did for the character was very interesting, because it solved a lot of problems I can imagine for the writers. If they don't want Marion to be on this adventure, and they just got married at the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where is she? So we have separation papers that are given to him at the beginning of the movie, and you realize, okay, so they're really on the rocks here. And once you learn that their son was killed after he enlisted, that not only solves the Mutt issue, but it solves why isn't Marion around, because that loss puts such a strain on their marriage that they're not entirely sure if it's going to work out. Of course, at the end of the film it does, and what I think is a very sweet callback to the scene in Raiders, where they point to parts of their body that don't hurt, which leads to a kiss, and that I thought was a very nice ending for Indy to let him have someone to be with, because he was so lonely and it was kind of sad until then. But I liked how Mangold took his time with some of those scenes. He really does sit a bit, and sometimes the score is not there, and you're sitting with these characters and it's just dry. There's no music in the background, and you feel their age and you feel the weight of their conversations, and it felt very old school to me. The notion of Indiana Jones and time travel has been brought up before, and here we experience that, where he actually goes back to a battle in, I think they said, 214 BC, and he is looking at history, and as an archaeologist, and someone who loves history, this is truly euphoric for him. He's in tears, and I thought it was beautiful. Not everyone's gonna love the idea of time travel, and some people are gonna scoff at it, but there are really weird Indiana Jones adventures. If you've seen the Young Indiana Jones show or read any of the books, there's a lot of weird shit that this guy has gone up against. And to some people, the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail is some weird, made-up shit. Just keep that in mind. Not everybody believes in that either, just like not everybody believes in interdimensional beings. But I mentioned a character choice in the film that didn't work for me, and that it was a spoiler. For some people, I'm assuming they thought I was talking about how Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena knocks him out when he wants to stay in this time, and she's like, no, you need to go back where you belong. I imagine people thought I was talking about that. I wasn't. I was talking about how Indiana Jones is tied up and shot for the majority of the film's finale. He's kind of taken out of the equation, and I think that's a very poor choice. Here's something interesting to think about. Indiana Jones is tied up for the ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark as well. He's tied to a pole. He doesn't have anything to do with the Nazis opening the Ark, and he's just kind of standing there. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a great film though, right? That's probably my least favorite aspect of Raiders. In fact, the only thing about the film I don't really like. It's one of many reasons Last Crusade is my favorite Indiana Jones film, because he is very active during the finale. Here they've done something similar to Raiders by tying him up and making him essentially incapacitated for the majority of the finale. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to have a problem with Helena knocking Indiana Jones out and bringing him back to his time. And I can understand that. I get it. But Indiana Jones has always been a character that is in love with history. It's why relationships have been hard for him. It's why at the end of The Last Crusade, when he's dangling in that precipice and his dad has him, he just watched Elsa fall to her death, trying to get the Grail. And when he's in that exact same position, what does he try to do? He tries to get the grail. He's enticed by it. His father has to tell him to let it go. He always needs somebody else to kind of bring him back to reality. In the case of this movie, his goddaughter literally does. The one thing I'll say about that, though, is that Last Crusade still gives him the choice. His dad says, "Indiana, let it go." And Indy turns to his dad and chooses to take his hand and be pulled back up. So it's not a 100 perfect defense towards someone who doesn't like the fact that Helena knocks out Indy because she doesn't give Indy the choice. And I can see why people wouldn't like that. I just didn't like how our hero was tied up for most of the third act. I wanted to see him sort of doing more and solving more problems. And as much of a cliché as it might be, I would have liked to have seen him fight Mads Mikkelsen. There's a massive dude in this movie, and I was positive that they were setting up a fight scene between this guy and Indiana Jones, and we just didn't get it. So I kind of missed some of that intensity, some of that white-knuckled near-death experiences that the first 3 Indiana Jones films gave us for our hero. I think it's one of the most important things about an Indiana Jones movie is that breaking point moment. I talked about it in my Crystal Skull review, and how that film didn't really have one. This movie has a lot more of that in the prologue when he's younger. It's got a really fun fight scene on top of that train. You think he's going to get his head smashed a few times? It's really fun. When he's older, though, there's little less of that. He's more on the run, chasing things, outrunning things, running towards things, searching for things. There's less of that sort of intense adrenaline-fueled action you're looking for. That's also because this film takes a realistic look at aging. You have a hero who's 80 years old and the film treats him like he is. So except for those few choices, I was mostly very entertained by Dial of Destiny. It's just that those choices come at the worst time, because they're right there in that finale third act, revelation part where that's really what's sitting with you when you leave the theater. And that's tough because when so much of the film works just fine, and you get to that one point and you're like, oh, that could have been better. That's gonna be the clincher for most people. It's gonna be a deal or no deal for a lot of folks. And for me, I like so much of this movie that I was able to look past it. Anything helps, truly. Thank you so much, guys. Look forward to more videos very soon, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.